So a few weeks back I did a video where I updated my Commodore 64 Hit Squad collection. Because you all know what the video is going to be about, you've seen the thumbnail. And today what I'm going to do, probably for the first time, because when I did my Hit Squads for this particular computer, I did them as part of my whole collection for that particular computer. So today we are doing Spectrum Hit Squads. Yes, Spectrum Hit Squads. Now this for some reason is by far and away the biggest amount of Hit Squads I actually own. And I didn't realise just how many I had. Bear in mind I'm not meant to be collecting these things, but there's an obscene amount. And for one viewer possibly, if he's watching, this will be a trip down memory lane because these are most of his games. In fact, I can't really tell you what I actually got from Sega Zombie, which is where I got them from. And thanks once again for that, Scott. I'm not sure how many they got these from you and how many I got originally. I don't know. Well, it could be interesting anyway because we're going to whiz through these. But yeah, there's probably not far off about 50% of the Spectrum collection. And I always thought I had more Commodore 64 ones, but I got about 35, which is, you know, what, 30 odd percentish. Maybe a bit less than that. And you know, when I do get around to the Amstrad one, it'll be even less. But anyway, so welcome aboard. Thanks for coming back, and nice to see you here again. And yes, we're doing a gaming video for a change. Isn't that good? No gameplay, no videos or VHS or Blu-rays. No, we're going to do this. So yeah, I'm going to crack through this. We've got quite a lot to get through, and I don't want to obviously hold you up with one of these like 75-hour videos I keep doing. So yeah, so these are Hit Squads. Now, if you don't know what Hit Squads are, they were very, very popular budget re-release label back in the early 1990s. This is really interesting because these are re-releases. These aren't the original games. If you want the original games, they're probably, some of them will be a lot cheaper to pick up than these, which is really interesting. I thought about it the other day. I thought, yeah, these games actually, some of the big box versions are maybe a little bit more, or in some cases a lot less. But it's the uniformity of the Hit Squads. The Hit Squads have got numbered spines. Apart from, I think, one title, all the titles on the spine, which I'll show you, are all in the same font and colour, apart from one. And a couple of them are sort of sit outside of that completely, but the majority of the 110 to 120 titles are pretty much in the same uniform. So then they're numbered in they've got three different sections. There's arcade, there's movie, and there's sport. Some very questionable placements of these particular games as well. And you know, they're just really, and it's just a label that everybody remembers. All these massive games that came out originally got re-released in the budget range, which is what these are. And you could have bought these for $2.99, $3.99, I think, on the tape side of things. And people just remember them. And for collectors, it's like the Evercade. I know people. I'm not talking about the Evercade as sorts, but yeah, the Evercade have numbered cartridges. If you're a collector, they all look nicely lined up with numbers on them and everything. Hit Squad is pretty much exactly the same thing, and there are some insanely, incredibly expensive titles to get as well. You know, you're paying £100 to £200 for a game which, you know, you could have got years ago for a couple of quid. Now, I'm not sure again, in terms of the rarity and the value, how many in here, although I do know, and Scott quite rightly said when he sold them to me, there's a few in here that you don't see all that often. And again, it varies from label to label. Some of the Commodore ones are more expensive than the Spectrum ones, which are also more expensive than the Amstrad ones. There are a handful of releases for the BBC and the Atari 800, 400, 800. Where was it? It was an MSX releases, but I think it was a Commodore 16 release as well for a couple of the games. So yeah, some real rarities out there. So I'm not sure how many are really rare in here, but I love them because, again, this was part of my childhood. So I remember this label, and believe me, there's so many people trying to collect these and get a full set. So I know some people have done it, and some people are absolutely crazy, spending stupid amounts of money trying to get that full set. But you know, if you've done it, fair play to you. I know there's quite a few people have done it. So let's start with two games that really sit outside the spinal anomaly. It sounds like a disease. And these are the fun school games. These are educational titles, which is, again, it's a really weird thing to see released in this, but I didn't know they were released as part of the Hit Squad. So we've got two, I think there's three altogether. And these were $3.99 when they came out originally. So what you've got is The two Fun School games here, which you've got Fun School for the over 8-year-olds and Fun School for the 6 to 8-year-olds, and I think there's one which is for under 6. And it's just a series of educational games. You probably won't see very well. The problem with these, you're not going to be able to see them very well, which is a real issue. But I'll show you the fronts, because the fronts are obviously the artwork is what we come for. But those two really sit outside of the entire. Whoops, wobble the camera there. Sit outside what we're going to see now, and the rest of these are uniform as such. So we'll do sports, we'll do movies, and then we'll finish off with the arcade stuff. So that's probably the best way to do it. Now, like I said, the sports classification, I've got a bit of a. It doesn't sit well with me because some of these titles in here are what I would say arcade games, and they've been lumped in the sports section. You'll see in the arcade section there's some games in there which you're thinking, well, if you put those games in there, surely these games should be in here as well. Interesting, but we shall see. So the first one up, this is sports number 2, and this is Yar Kung Fu, which I know a lot of people really enjoy. I don't think I've ever really got on with this game properly. It's martial arts, but again, this is an arcade game. Now I can see why it's been put in here, because you'll see a couple of later titles that will, and that's the artwork I'm talking about on the side there. So all the Hit Squad titles, bar 1, and those Fun School games have got this font colour. You can see there it's got a little number on. It's got sports and 2. So you know, the collection of. I don't know how many there were of each game. You'll have to find somebody who knows a bit more about this than myself, if you really want to go in more detail. But you know, Yar Kung Fu is not a game I really got on with, but I always get it mixed up with Shaylin's Road for some reason. I don't know why. Next up then is a game which is probably, we think, right down my street, and this is World Series Baseball. Again, weird game to re-release. I don't remember this game at all from when I was growing up. Hardball I remember, but Hardball was got released on the Kicks label because it was an Accolade game, I think, and that was where US Gold was. But that's one you don't see all that often. I've seen the original release version of those many years ago. I'll just show you the tape. The tape really, they're nothing special about the tape. It's either black tape. It's either got gold or silver writing on, and that's it. The inlay card, he's just got the instruction on it as well. But he's all got the inlay cards and everything with them. And that one's number 4, sports title number 4, World Series Baseball. There is a baseball game that came out as well, RBI 2, which is one of the late sports releases, which is, again, really hard to get up. I did actually pick up RBI 2 on the Commodore 64, the big box version, well, they say the big box, the cardboard box version, a few weeks back, and that was dirt cheap to pick up, because I thought, oh, that might be quite expensive, but no, it isn't. It wasn't that expensive, but the Hit Squad version is expensive. That's what I'm talking about. Next up, we got Hypersports, which everybody will remember. It's button bashing, joystick waggling, hours of fun, all the different sporting events like shooting, and they got the swimming and the pommel horse, and I think some athletics in there involved as well. You got Hypersport. I mean, this is a classic game. It was on the original Konami coin-op collection, for those of you who picked that up ages ago. That's number 5 in the sports range, Hypersports. Absolute classic of the day. You know what, they were Daley, Thompson's Decathlon, track and field, etc. Now this game, let's see what we're talking about. Let's go back to Yar Kung Fu martial arts game, which was an arcade game. This game wasn't an arcade game, but it's got in the sports section, and this is International Karate Plus, which I grew up playing the Amiga version. The Commodore 64 version is fantastic as well, and I've never actually played the Spectrum version. I've not played many of these at all, which reminds me I should probably need to go through and start playing them again. This is number 8 in the sports range, International Karate. But yeah, it's an absolute classic game. I mean, certainly on the Amiga, it's just brilliant fun. Great sound effects on it. Now this one again in the sports section. We'll come to something when we get to the arcade, we'll work it out. This is Super Handgun, which again is a great game on the Mega Drive, as I've got acquired in the last couple of years or so. And this is, you remember from the arcade, you may not remember, there's a giant, great big bike to sit down, great super bike to sit on and manoeuvre like that hydraulically. It really added to the experience of doing it. The Hang On was the game that was built into the Master System, that the 8-bit versions aren't overly brilliant. The Commodore 64 one is horrendous, but this one I don't think is too bad. But you know, my experience that was really arcade playing it. It's a great big bike you sit down on, fantastic. We've got next Daley Thompson's Super Test, which again is in the Hyper Sports range. Sorry for those who keep it up, I've got to show you that one. Super Hang-On is number 9. A lot of people keeping score at home, then trying to get in contact with me and tell me all the ones I haven't got. Daley Thompson's Super Test is the next one. Again, in the vein of track and field, this is a series of individual events like pistol shooting, tug of war, you don't see that very often, cycling, something I can't read there. No, I can't read that. Diving, giant slalom, which is interesting. You don't associate Daley Thompson with skiing. He was an athlete. He was a decathlete back in the day. But yeah, it's very much in that vein. There's a couple of Daley Thompson. There was Daley Thompson Decathlon, Daley Thompson Super Test, and Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge, which was coincided with the 1988 Olympic Games, and that one there is number 11. You don't, of the three, Daley Thompson Decathlon's probably the most common one, which I don't appear to have in here. Was it a hit squad release? I don't know, but that's probably the more difficult one, and I say difficult one to find. You don't see it all that often, as commonly as the other two. Now, talk about Yar Kung Fu. We've got Shaylin's Road, which is the game. You see, I get confused with it up next. Now, this really was an arcade game, and having played it, it's definitely more like an arcade game than a sports game. It's weird because you've got a good jump up and down different levels as martial arts people to death. The way of doing it, I don't know. But this is number 12 in the sports range. But that, for me, is in the wrong section. That really is an arcade game. I like Shaylin's Road. A lot of people. It's an average game, but I like it. I played it on Commodore Corner a few ages ago, and I could have sat there and played it for a bit. We mentioned Daley Thompson. This is Daley Thompson's Olympic Challenge. I remember the big box version of this, which was big square size thing. This was time with the 1988 Seoul Olympics. We're giving it 34 years old now, that game. But there we go, different sort of things. It wasn't so much to do with the sporting side of things, there was also training tests you could do as well. That one's number 14 in the sports section, and the last one I've got, the sports games. And believe me, this game bothers me, because not only is it a terrible football game, every bundle you see on a Spectrum bundle, this game is in there. I've got a copy of this, which I've been trying to get rid of. I've been sitting around for ages, just gathering dust because nobody wants it, because everybody's got it. And this is Match Day 2. Now, I know a lot of people do like this game because when it came out originally, there wasn't much else for it to compete with, and I know it because of the time. When it was made, it's on the slow and clunky and cumbersome side. But even back then, I felt it was slow and clunky and cumbersome compared to Emlyn Hughes' football, international football, which was much better game. Much better game, and that is number 13. If I've gone out of order on that one, you say 14. I thought I put you in order. 14, 13. So 13 is Match Day 2, 14 is Daley Thompson, and that's it. So those are the ones I got in the sports game selection. But again, I wouldn't really class. I mean, I'd say maybe. Well, we've got there 4, we've got 9, haven't we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. I mean, I'd say probably 6 of those don't. 6 of those belong in the sports section, 3 don't. Weird. Anyway, let's move on to the movies, because these are ones that are based on movies, except there's one here that really isn't based on a movie. In fact, there's 2 here that really aren't based on a movie as well. We could pick holes in this all day, couldn't we? Don't sit there and pick holes. I'm trying not to. Anyway, what do we got first then? So this is the movie section. These are games based around films and tie-ins, I'm guessing. Licensed games. So we got Rambo First Blood Part 2, which, interestingly enough, you'll notice there it is number 1 in the movie section, but also on the top there's a little yellow mark. Now, as you see round the front there, it says Spectrum 48K. If you'll notice here, it does say Spec on that. That's the Daley Thompson game, but this one doesn't, and I think it's the only one that I've got which doesn't have that on there. I don't think it's a printing error, it just it was the first movie release, so maybe this was the first Hit Squad release. Don't know. I have no idea. But yeah, it's not a bad game, this one. It's I quite enjoy playing it. More associated for me with the Commodore 64 version. But again, nice little game, that one. Very, very common. You can find that anywhere. Yeah, but I don't think this. Also, you'll notice as well that they say that yellow, they're all colour coded. So the Amstrad, for example, was orange. The red with Commodore 64. I don't know what the other colours were because I haven't got any of those games. But yeah, see, they try and give you a uniform thing, spine. They try and give you a number. They try and give it colour coded. You can see what they're trying to do. Very, very clever. Now we mentioned spines. This is the one that doesn't have the same font as everything else. Apart from the Fun School games, but ignore that one. So this is Batman. Now also what's interesting is this actually isn't based on Batman the film, or Batman the TV series as such. Not really sure what it's based on. This is an isometric adventure. So if you've ever played Head Over Heels, this is basically the Batman Head Over Heels type game. Very, very similar puzzle solving, but it's not associated with the film or the TV series. It uses the sort of classic Batman look, but it's sort of somewhere between 60s Batman and 80s Batman. I don't know. That would make it 70s Batman, wouldn't it? Yes, obviously. But you see what's about the spine. The spine has got the Batman insignia. Well, I said insignia, Batman graphic, rather than having the hit squad. So it's taken the Batman logo from there and shoved it down the side. Interesting. If anyone that does that, that's number 3 on your hit squad movie list. We got Top Gun next. Obviously, we just had the sequel. How many years later was that? 30 odd years later. It's the longest gap between sequels ever. I've not played this one, so I don't think it's got a particularly good reputation, but I don't really know that one. I played the NES one. That's number 4. Again, that's quite easy to find, that one. Batman's quite easy to find. I mean, those 3 there are quite easy to find. Now, this one, I don't like this film at all. Didn't see the point in it, but I remember people at school used to think it was brilliant. And you can see the original price on the front of this one because the label's still on. This is Short Circuit, which was a film about a robot that escaped. Is it from this FBI or the CIA or something? I don't know. It's been that long since I can remember. Steve Guttenberg of Police Academy of Fame was in the first one, and he didn't bother doing the sequel. But you see there, it says Star Choice Software $2.99. Actually, something's written $1.99 underneath there as well. So, but that's it. You know, that's the sort of thing you would go into your local newsagents or high street store or chemist or anywhere that could sell these things, and that's how much they used to cost. $2.99. Pocket money games these were back then. And it's just a sort of side-scrolling platform adventure game with puzzle solving and things in it. Not my sort of thing really. And that is number 5 on your movie list. There we go. But yeah, I'm not a massive fan. I think we just barely downloaded the 2 films. I've done Johnny 5 is alive. I think that was the tagline going back then. Not my sort of thing. Now this is an interesting one because this is based on an old film. It's an interesting little game. It's The Great Escape, which was always on at Christmas apparently. No, it wasn't. I even saw my Christmas stream last year on Christmas TV. This film was not always on at Christmas. Bank holidays maybe, not Christmas. Based on the 1963 film, where you're trying to escape from a German prisoner of war camp. And again, isometric game. Quite a few of these were isometric games. There were quite a few games that were released. You got this one I was talking about, Batman Head Over Heels. You had the Land That Time Forgot. The Last Ninja games were all isometric as well. Yeah, you either get to grips with this game or spend most of your time being captured by the Germans, which is probably how real life actually was, to be honest. Yeah, it's about right, isn't it? Yeah, that's what you either escaped or you didn't. Yeah, that one's number 6. There we go. Now, here's a game I don't particularly like. Playing the Commodore 64, not one of my favourite games. I don't think it's a particularly great game, full stop. And this is Predator, based on the 1987 Arnold Schwarzenegger film, which probably is one of my favourite Schwarzenegger films, this one. And this is just a left to right run and gun. But you know, compared to something like Contra or Midnight Resistance, it's anywhere near as good. This is number 8 on the movie list. Yeah, I picked the Blu-ray up that in 3D a couple of years back, I think it was. Yeah, do like Predator. Carl Weathers, Jesse Ventura, very good. It will be another game based on the film because we're doing the film section, aren't we? I'm talking about practice doing these. This is Platoon. This is the game I don't particularly like either. Because yeah, it's I don't know, just a confusing game for me. This one, I've got no idea where you're meant to be going. Probably if I actually worked out what I was meant to be doing and got off the first sort of stages, I'd probably enjoy it a bit more. But I don't know, just can't get on with Platoon. But I've got the Commodore 64 version of this, and I can't remember if I've got the Hit Squad, but I've definitely got the big box version. It's got the poster in it as well, which is great. But I haven't got the soundtrack tapes. They gave a soundtrack tape away with the 8-bit versions, I think. But yeah, so that's number 9. You've got quite a few of these, so you can see where the gaps are. Now we've got number 10, which is Star Wars. This is the conversion of the 84 arcade game, or the 83 arcade game, I can't remember. It is done in wireframe graphics, or polygons, or whatever you want to call them. Not about as good as you would get a game like that on an 8-bit system. 16-bit versions were better, obviously, and they had speech as well, which is quite interesting. But these versions were okay. They weren't brilliant, but they did what they did and could do with the technology available to them. But again, that's a fantastic artwork on that. Really, really good, isn't it? Captures the spirit of that, and that is number 10 on your movie list. And then there was a sequel, of course, not only for a film, but also for a game, and it was The Empire Strikes Back. And this is number 11. And again, this is exactly the same vein, same setup, same premise, wireframe, vector, polygon, graphic type thingies. You know what I mean? That's that sort of thing. And I've never played The Empire Strikes Back. Do you know what? I've never played that one. I've played the first one, and I've played Return of the Jedi, which I'm going to show you next. That's number 11, by the way. But I never played The Empire Strikes Back. I don't know why. Anyway, Return of the Jedi, which is a departure from those 2 previous games, and they tried to make it an arcade adventure. This number 12, by the way. And they tried to turn it into an isometric Zaxxon point of view shoot 'em up. It just felt a bit, what's the word? Clunky. I mean, by the time this was converted, it was quite an old arcade game. You could see what they did to try and do something different to make it more arcadey and more colourful, more graphically better. There was speech as well in it, but as a game playing experience, it was a bit of a mess. And although I'd quite happily play it and sit down and do it, you get when you play a game and you think, yeah, it's all right, but it's nothing special. But you keep going back to it. And I would do that. It's a Amiga version as well. I'd spend a lot of time playing that because it actually had some speech in that as well from the film, which was always quite good. But yeah, really confusing. Now here's a game which is in the movie section, which again is more of a tie-in because it's not actually a movie game. This is Batman the Caped Crusader, which is based on the comic books of the time, and this has got 2 games actually. You've got one game which has the arch villain being the Joker, and the other one being the Penguin. You can see both of them on the front cover there. And again, this is very much based on the comic book. Interesting because it's like a flick screen adventure in a comic book style. So you'll have like a screen and have a little word at the top, like a comic book used to, like Meanwhile or The Batcave or wherever. It was very well done, but yes, 2 games on that for the price of 1, which is always rather good, and that's number 13 in your Hit Squad movie section. But again, it's not based on the film, so it's more based on the comic, that one. But it probably sits in the right place. Now, when I was going through these earlier, sorting them all out to do this video, I actually found out that I'd got this game twice. How bizarre. And this is Rambo 3. So I had this twice. I don't usually do things like that. I'm usually pretty good. So I have a spare copy of Rambo 3 to play. And this is combination of 3D Operation Wolf style shoot 'em up and top down commando, walking around where eagles dare, etc. Into the eagle's nest, isn't it? I think it is. Who dares wins into the eagle's nest game. It's not bad. It's not bad. I'd like to get the Mega Drive version of this. I'd like to get. I remember seeing it in the magazines when I was younger. And I thought I really must get hold. If I had a Mega Drive, I'd get that. And I've been looking for a copy of it, but not found one yet. Anyway, let's move those out of the way so I can see what I'm doing. 3 more in this one. That one, sorry, by the way, number 14. Next one up. This again, it's sort of halfway between two. It's not based on a movie. It's actually based on a TV series. But you can see why it's here, because it's based on a film franchise, and this is the real Ghostbusters. So it's based on the cartoon series. Now this was originally, cut a long story short, there was an original arcade game for which they used this as the template for the real Ghostbusters and just inserted Ghostbuster characters into it, and it didn't really work as far as I'm aware, because I've never actually played it. This is number 15. It's generally derided as a game. And I Ghostbusters the film, yeah, fair enough. I was never into the cartoon. Never into the cartoon at all. 2 to go then. This is the next one here. We'll show you another one which has got the original price on it. Now this actually is finding the right section for this particular franchise. This is Batman the movie, one of my favourite games of all time. And you can see there that was slightly more expensive at $3.99. And this one is number 19. And this is based on the film, the 1989 Michael Keaton, Tim Burton film. In typical Ocean software fashion, this was split across a number of different levels. 2 platform levels, 2 driving, one driving, one flying section. Of course, there was a puzzle section as well. That's pretty much how they formulaically turn their games out around this time and forever onwards. But very, very good game indeed. Very, very good game. And the last one I've got in the movie section, and again, this is pretty much in the same vein. Although this was loosely based on an arcade game, and this is Robocop, which I played mostly on the Amiga. The Commodore 64 version, I think as we discussed last time, has got a known bug in it where it's pretty impossible to get past. I think it's level 4, is it, or 3? I can't remember. Even though the magazines raved about how good it was. I've not played the Spectrum version actually, so I can't really comment on it. But again, it's like a combination of platforming and puzzle solving. But again, it's loosely based on the Data East arcade game as well. And that is number 22. And I think I've got Robocop across all 3. I've got the Robocop version on the Amstrad. I've now got it on the 64, and now I've got the big box on the 64 as well. So there we go. I had 3 boxes, 3 versions, 3 copies of the Robocop on the Commodore 64. I sold one and gave one to somebody else. There we go. Kept one for myself. Right. So that's the movie section. Okay. So again, a few anomalies in there, but probably difficult to see where they would have fitted into the other ones. This one, however, is going to be a bit of a blur again. This is based on the arcade, and by far and away the biggest number of games I've got for it. So we'll kick this one off with Enduro Racer, which, as you can see, is a game based on dirt biking, which again, like Handgun, was a big arcade game where you sat down on a motocross bike and moved it around. So this is now in the arcade section as opposed to being in the sports section. I don't know. And again, you'll notice because it's number 1 on the arcade thing, there's no actual identification on the yellow bit of the top where it says Spectrum and everything else. Just not this one. So it's not an anomaly as such, really. This is I played this on the Commodore 64. It's a terrible conversion. I'm not sure how this plays. I've never played it on the Spectrum. But there we go. This is more about me showing what I'm doing. More showing off. This is a terrible game on any system. I don't care what people say. It's a shocker. It's Crazy Cars. Absolutely terrible game. This is number 3. Enduro Racer, by the way, was number 1. I can't remember if I showed you that. Enduro Racer was number 1. The arcade, this is number 3. Crazy Cars, made by Titus. The only thing crazy about this fact they made 3 games, although some people will defend game number 3 until the cows come home, but I don't care. After playing this one, there is nothing crazy about this at all. Infuriating cars, annoying cars, terrible cars would be a good one. Now, some people remember this one. I made a film of it a few years back. I don't know why, but well, I can see why. But it's again a fun little game to play. I've talked about this game quite a few times. This is Rampage, and so I've only got this on the Commodore 64. I've got this on the Master System, and it is fun. You know, you're a giant-sized monster, a gorilla or a werewolf or a lizard, and you just go around smashing buildings up and eating people, and it's really, really good. It is good fun. It is a touch repetitive, but that's the original source material these things are based on. You've got to bear in mind that when these arcade games were converted, you're working with the original code, the original concept. So if the original concept was average, then you can make a good version of an average game, but it's still going to be an average game. You want to take a bad arcade game and turn it into a good one. And I believe there's a lot of good arcade games turned into bad conversions, sometimes because of system limitation. That's number 5 on your list. But Rampage isn't too bad. That one. Next up, again, this is a game which I couldn't quite believe at the time they put it together, because the original version of this game was so dull and boring and monotonous that when they bought this out, I thought, do you know what? Why bother? But then they put power-ups and they gave it a space setting, and you thought, wow, this is actually quite good. And this is Arkanoid, which is based on the old Breakout game. So the old bat and ball, so you had the bricks at the top and you had the bat at the bottom, and you'd bounce the ball up and down and clear the screen to knock the bricks off. And it works brilliantly well. Again, I don't think it's a particularly bad version of Arkanoid. It's really, really good. Of course, there was a sequel to Arkanoid, and then there was the game on the Game Boy, which is Alleyway, I think, which is a fantastic little game as well. If you've never played that, it's definitely worth getting. And this is number 7. I got Arkanoid. But I remember playing this when it came out on the 64 and just thinking, wow, this is so much different to Breakouts. We had Breakout in the Atari 2600. It was so dull. Oh, it was so dull. But that really does elevate it. It's really, really good. What have we got next? We've got Combat School, which is a game I can actually profess to never actually playing in any way, shape or form whatsoever. But this is very much in the track and field joystick waggling game, where you actually are going through to undergo some military training and have to go through a military training course, obstacle courses and things, and yeah, there we go. That's all I can tell you about that game. But it is number 8. See, none of it got very well reviewed at the time, but I must admit, you're somebody who used to frequent arcade games. It is a Konami game. As somebody used to frequent arcades in the 80s, I don't remember seeing this ever in the arcade, let alone playing the home version. So some of these games I can tell you a little bit about if I played different versions of them, or arcade versions of them. But that one, I can't tell you. And technically speaking, could that be in the sports section? Maybe. No, probably not. Now this one is Quartet, which is a game people seem to forget about. Did a video on this ages ago, years ago, on the Commodore 64. It was a 4-player arcade game, which was incredibly rare at the time, because it's like mid 80s. This, it's a Sega game as well. Now I think the 8-bit version, certainly for home, knocked it down from 4 players to 2 players. And there is a Master System version, which I think by far and away is the best 8-bit version of a lot of them, which I don't have. It's quite hard to get hold of. Not expensive, but it's hard. It's number 9 in the arcade section, but very few people remember this. It's a futuristic space, left to right, right to left, go around shooting stuff, collect keys to get to the end of the level, etc. It's not, a lot of people say it's very average. I think it was a fair arcade game, average conversion. I think it's a good little game in there. So I never played the arcade original, but like I said, I played it on another system. I think it was too bad. Played a lot worse, like this one. Wonder Boy, which is a game I don't particularly enjoy at all. I know some people on Wonder Boy will praise it till the cows come home, but I think I just played really poor 8-bit conversions. I played it on the Commodore 64. I thought it was terrible. Although I must profess to playing some of the later Wonder Boys on emulation, and they are much better. But this is just a ropey old conversion, I think, really, which is a real shame. This is number 10. In fact, when Wonder Boy came out, I couldn't quite believe years later how well received the Master System games were, because I remember thinking, well, that was a terrible game when 3 or 4 years ago. How did that become so big in a massive franchise? And now it's like, oh, you can see why, yeah. But back then it was like, what the hell are they playing on that one? So that's number 10. Yeah. This is a game I always get confused with Rygar for some reason. This is Brastan. This is, I'm trying to get all the Master System copy of this. There's a copy I've seen recent round about locally, but it's missing. Is it missing the manual or missing the hang tab? I don't know. But this is a left to right, right to left hack and slash, because you've got some sort of warrior fighting some sort of lizard, so some sort of axes involved there to do that with. It's not bad actually. It's a bit repetitive, but not a bad little game. It's number 17, I believe. My eyesight may say 17, I think, but it's number 17 on your arcade hit squad list. But yeah, it's not a bad game, that one. Not bad. Now, this is an absolute classic. And really, if you don't know whoops, you dropped it then. It nearly became an X-Classic and into a number of pieces. This is R-Type. There we go. Now, if you don't know what R-Type is, it's a left to right shoot 'em up in the classic shoot 'em up phase, and it's incredibly difficult and hard. And I've got this on so many different versions. The PC Engine is regarded as the closest one to the arcade, but again, I don't think there is a bad version of arcade of R-Type. There might be some slower versions around. Master System version is very good, which suffers from slowdown, but it is one of the best. It's also got one of the most iconic end of level bosses in history. You can see there that this was $2.99 in Boots. Yes, Boots the Chemist. You sell computer games, but that's one of the most iconic end of level bosses. Also one of the easiest end of level bosses you've ever come across. But that picture has been seen so many times over the years, and people go, "Oh yeah, R-Type." That's number 18 in the arcade collection. Classic game, absolute classic game. Am I any good at it? No. Do I enjoy it? Yes. Me and shoot 'em ups, we get on better than other games. I don't mind a shoot 'em up being particularly difficult if I get a little bit further each time I play it. Number 19, Target Renegade. Interesting that this Renegade was the original game that came out in the arcade, and this was the direct-to-computer home game only, no actual arcade game. So I'm not sure what it's doing in the arcade section, but it's not really a sports game, is it? And this is, again, Double Dragon, Final Fight, Streets of Rage, but obviously on a much smaller scale and done a few years beforehand. So it is one of the games which people talk about and fondly remember. Number 19, as we said, on the home systems. But interesting enough, people think it's an arcade game, but it's not. It was a direct to home system creation. And very well remembered. Now, one of my favourite games of all time, because of the arcade machine and how it's set up, is Operation Wolf, which was a giant, it was an arcade machine with an Uzi mounted to the front of it, which would vibrate and force feedback when you play it. It's very much in the 3D shooter section, so the screen scrolls left to right or right to left for you. You just simply move the cursor around and shoot things. Much better to play it with a light phaser. I don't think there were any mouses out for those systems, were there? I don't think so. Much easier to play it, therefore, with a light phaser if you're able to do so. You have a CRT now. Try and play it with a joystick. Yeah, that's what we used to do. We were hard back then. Operation Wolf is number 20. But yeah, one of my favourite arcade games. Yeah, the home versions, honestly, they weren't bad. They weren't bad. Trying to convert the unconvertible. We talked about sort of 3D racing games. Here's a game which had, initially when it came out, a hydraulic cab which would rotate and spin round. And again, 3D effect, you're behind the vehicle you're in. And you're thinking, how can you recapture that spirit on an 8-bit system? It's impossible to do so. But they had a go, bless them. And the results were hilarious, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think they get a lot of bad press because of what they were trying to be, what they ended up being. This is Afterburner, in case you wonder what I'm talking about, which is based on sort of Top Gun air combat. Again, very iconic game from the period, the mid to late, the late 80s, really. This one, but trying to convert a game which is a sprawling, fast-moving 3D dogfighting shooting game on a Spectrum or a Commodore 64 or an Amstrad just isn't going to work. But they have to keep doing these things because the name itself would sell copies. It's just, you know, sometimes you would get good conversions, not brilliant, but good. Number 21. Yeah, I don't know, it's difficult. I mentioned Arkanoid earlier. This is very, very quickly the sequel, which is Arkanoid Revenge of Doe, before Doe became part of the English language. And this is just more of the same. Bat and ball, break the walls down, power-ups, etc. Pretty good though, really good fun. And this is number 23 on your arcade selection. About halfway through now. This is number 25. This is Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, which is a game I don't particularly have fond memories of, and I don't think has aged particularly well. Again, it's arcade beat 'em up left to right, which was so common back then. But this is one where the president congratulates you at the end with some ridiculous phrase, "good job" or something like that. I can't remember. Number 25, as we said, it's called Dragon Ninja. It's sometimes known as Bad Dudes versus Dragon Ninja, which it says they're bad dudes. So they do look bad, don't they? Badly drawn dudes. Data East arcade game, that one. Very, very well known. Came out on pretty much every single system. This is one that most people won't remember. I think it's quite a difficult one. I remember seeing it advertised in the magazines and reviewed in the magazines, so this is all I can tell you. And this is SDI. Not STD, STI. SDI. But it's a space shoot 'em up game, but I've never actually played it, so I can't honestly tell you what it's all about. But I remember seeing it in the magazines thinking, that really isn't my sort of thing, but do you know what? It doesn't look too bad. Number 26. Now the odds are even. There we go. Changing numerical things as well. Very, very clever. Again, the game I don't really know. Again, knew of it at the time, but I don't remember anything about it. I don't remember playing it either. Don't remember seeing the arcade version, and this is Zoybotz. I presume I pronounced that right. I never actually had to pronounce that on screen before. But this is an interesting one because it's a maze game where you're sort of running away from the screen towards the enemy. So it sort of moves with the screen as you go along, I think, if I remember. But I don't know, I can't tell you more than that. I can tell you it's number 27. But I never played it. I remember seeing it knocking around at the time, but I don't think it particularly appealed to me. This one exactly the same as well. Again, I don't remember this. This is a 10-gen game. This is Vindicators, which was like some sort of futuristic shoot 'em up with vehicles. Stunning graphics, quality action. I've got a CMVG hit. Simply a superb conversion according to the games machine, but I don't know anything about it. But again, this would be the sort of game I would pick up and play back then, so it's not one of interest to me. Number 28. Not what I'm particularly interested in. This is a fun little game. It really is. I remember for the first saw this, I thought, what on earth is that? Again, never saw the arcade game. When I played the home version, I thought, actually, it's quite fun, this. And again, not many people remember it. It's APB, or All Points Bulletin, as it was known. And it's weird because it's a top-down police simulator. You have to go around chasing cars and making arrests using a very complicated system of doing so, where you've got to move a steering wheel over a vehicle you're chasing to try and track them down, and then you may have to try and get a confession out of the criminal, and you'd have to waggle the joystick to beat a confession out of them or something. But it's all done like cartoony. It's really quite fun. It's tricky to get used to, but honestly, it's not bad at all, that one. And again, not I'd say, you know, it's you'll find it on one of the Midway Arcade Treasures compilations that came out on PlayStation 2 and Xbox. I know because I was testing one of them the other day. I think it's Midway Arcade Treasure, that's the first one, but that game is on there. It's number 29 on the arcade as well. But it's a fun little game, that. Different. All-time classic now. And this is interesting, because he's got a white tape now. Everything else here is black, but we've got a white tape here. That's thrilling. Maybe that's a rare version, I don't know. Maybe they ran out of black tapes. It's Bobble. Everyone knows Bobble, don't they? There we go. We talked about Bobble many times. There's even gameplay of me playing Bobble on my channel somewhere. Platform game, clear the screens of other monsters, using bubbles that you can blow with a little dinosaur. It's a classic. If you've never played Bobble, you need shooting, and this is number 30. And again, there are not many at all, if any, bad versions of that game. Same with this one I'm going to show you as well. I don't think it's a bad version of this either. This is New Zealand Story, which is again one of my favourite games, which I've waxed lyrical about many times on here before. Platform game where you're a Kiwi, sort of canary variation, and you've got to go through a level, reach the end where one of your friends is cage release them, and there's end of level bosses to do. It does get incredibly tricky at times. Excuse me. It does get incredibly tricky at times, but it's a classic game. It's a Taito game. I'm saying Taito, Taito, Tito, Tomato, whatever. But one of my favourite games, that one. Very good. Had it on the Amiga, played it on Commodore 64. Own copies. I've got the new Master System version, which is honestly really stunning. Again, this is one of my favourite games, and this is the interesting little shoot 'em up. It's done from you're behind your character, and he can move around the screen and hide behind stuff, and the idea is to clear the screen of enemies and military vehicles and all sorts of end-level boss fights. This is Cabal. I do love this game. It really is quite good. This is a game I think is prime for a rediscovery. Really do enjoy this game. Played it on Commodore 64. It's number 33, I think. Yeah, number 33 in the arcade game. But this is one that probably gets undiscovered so much. I mean, you know, it's a cheesy as hell cover, but it came from that era where, you know, Rambo type games and type scenarios are very popular. I think that's a cracking game, and it doesn't get the respect it deserves. And this one as well. I mean, when this got reviewed originally, it said it was an average arcade game which became an above average home conversion. And this is tubing, but I love this. You're basically in a giant inflatable tyre, floating down a river, trying to avoid being snared by fishermen, eaten by crocodiles, avoiding things like rapids and people throwing rubbish at you. And yeah, it's not a lot to it, but it is just a very fun little game. And again, I think like Cabal, I think this game doesn't quite get the respect it deserves. This is number 34. I don't know out of order again. That was 33, Cabal. 34 is Tubin. But yeah, definitely worth tracking down if you've not played that one. There was a knockoff, there was Dizzy Down the Rapids, wasn't it? A knockoff Codemasters game with Dizzy involved, which wasn't anywhere near as good. But that's it. Now, Chase HQ, an absolute classic for people who remember late 80s arcade games. Very sort of Charles Bronson character on the front there. The idea is that you're a police unit and you go around trying to run cars off the road. Cracking arcade game, converted to the home systems with, shall we say, mixed results. The Commodore 64 version is horrendous. The Amiga and ST versions are incredibly slow. The Spectrum version, most people regard possibly one of the greatest, probably one of the best games on the Spectrum, full stop. The Amstrad version is pretty damn good as well. I think the one to get, is it the PC Engine version? It's PC Engine version, I think, which is meant to be the best one of the lot. This is number 35, but this was a massive arcade game when I was a kid, so when the home versions came out, obviously we all raced out and bought it and were incredibly disappointed, unless you were a respectable Amstrad owner, in which case I think you'd been rather impressed with that. But there we go. We mentioned Saw Operation Wolf at number 20 to number 30, so they'll be chart showing it, this one. They still have charts. We've had that conversation before, haven't we? I think this is number 37. Operation Wolf naturally had a sequel because it was successful. This is Operation Thunderbolt, where there are two of you with Uzis mounted on the front of arcade cabinets. For a two-player game. I don't think this one gets quite the reputation Operation Wolf did. But it's not a bad little game. I mean, it's more of the same. Probably more difficult, I think, this one than the two. But yeah, it's a cheap cover. But those games were incredibly popular back then. They were incredibly popular. Right, we've got 6 to go, I think. We've got a real mixed bag here. Altered Beast, which most people would know as a game that was given away with the Mega Drive when it first came out. I've never been a fan of Altered Beast at all. I think it's a pretty average game. I know some people, it does have its fans, but for me it was just an average game. Forget what the quality of the conversions were like. This is number 38, and I did have the Mega Drive version for a while, and I did play quite a lot of it. But it's just dull and repetitive game. Not particularly exciting. This one is interesting because, again, some people really like it or love it. It's Power Drift, which is, we had a discussion about this, I think, on the podcast a few weeks back, whether you're classing Power Drift as an arcade racer or a kart game. You are driving these funny looking little buggies, but it's not really a kart game in the same sense as Mario Kart or Crash, because you're not firing weapons at each other. It's a straight race. But I play primarily the 8-bit I play the Commodore 64 version and the Amiga version. The Amiga version was messy as anything because it tried to be like the arcade game, which again was a hydraulic moving experience, but a lot of graphics going on. And the Amiga tried to do the same thing, and to be honest with you, it was a bit of a graphical mess. The 8-bit versions pared things down a little bit, and they fared a lot better. The 64 version is very, very good, although graphically not as impressive as its 16-bit counterparts, but it wouldn't be. But it worked better for being scaled down. I think the Spectrum version is not bad either. And Spectrum could do races. They could, Commodore 64 had a problem with races, but Spectrum could do races pretty well. No one could do this one particularly well because it was just a shocker. This is Hard Driving, which was a massively hyped arcade game because you got these 3D polygon graphics involved, and you had to start. You sat down in the arcade game, and to start the game, you had to turn a key. That was excitement personified back then. But the problem is when you try and move something like that to an 8-bit system, you get mixed results. And to be honest with you, every version I played a Hard Drive, and even the 16-bit versions, are not good. It is number 30. It's number 40 actually. There we go. Numero 40. I'll show you what Power Drift was. Power Drift was 39. I keep forgetting. Power Drift was 39. And then we've got Hard Driving at 40. There was a sequel called Race Driving, which didn't really improve things. Just, if you're not sitting down in the arcade cabinet playing that game, it's an average at best experience elsewhere, and the conversions weren't great. Penultimate game I'm going to show you today, number 41, and this is Rainbow Islands, which is a sequel to Bobble, and the game before Parasol Stars. And quite rightly so, an absolute platform classic. Again, I don't think there were too many bad versions of Rainbow Islands. Really, I'm not sure how it fares on the Spectrum, because it must be honest with you, I played it on quite a few systems except the Spectrum. But it's very colourful, beautifully done as well. Great conversion, this one. They really did a fantastic job on that one. And again, that cracking artwork on the front of there, really mixing sort of like 1930s, 40s animated cartoon characters with colourful graphics and a brilliant setting. And this one I can't tell you anything about because I don't know it. And this is, it's not a game based on the film because that was completely different. This is Navy Moves. Now I'm pretty sure there's a game called Army Moves which came out before this. And there's a game called Navy Seals which is based on the film, because obviously that would be in the film section, wouldn't it? It may well have been a Hit Squad release. But I don't know anything about this one. If it's in the same vein as Navy Army Moves, then you're going to be in some sort of vehicle moving across the screen trying to do something. Obviously being Navy Moves will be set at sea in some sort of ship or submarine or something like that. I don't know. I've never played it. It is number 43. And the last one I'm going to show you today. There we go. So that's my Spectrum game. So I hope Scott's Sega Zombie was watching that and now all his games have been looked after. But what's it? Because I got something, and again, thank you very much indeed for that, Scott. Going back 12 months or so, brilliant. And I'm very proud of that. I mean, that's probably about half the games there. I'm never going to get to the end of it. Don't even tempt me to try and get involved and do that. But it's a classic, iconic, well remembered budget label. And I said right at the start, budget. That's the key things. You could probably get the big box version of these games cheaper than you can buy these for, because people like to collect these. In there are some really common ones. I mentioned there's quite a few common ones in there, but hopefully some in there you may not have seen so many, or may not have seen so much of recently. I know, having had a quick look through today, that some of those games are selling for a much higher than I thought they would be worth price. And some games are selling for, I can't believe they're selling it for that price. But that's the nature of the hit squads. It's probably, I know, is it ever a good time to collect hit squads? Probably not. But I know that there seems to be a little bit of a theory that maybe the top end ones are coming down a little bit, but still quite expensive. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. You know what to do if you have done. There's a thumb thing, there's a bell thing. I haven't got a symbol for a bell. Please leave me a comment. Love to hear from you what you think. Any that you would recommend that I haven't got. Don't recommend the expensive ones, because I'm not going to go around buying those. I know, you know what I'm talking to. And if you've enjoyed that and go on and check out the other content on the channel, that'd be great. Feel free to subscribe. It's your choice at the end of the day. But it does make me feel a lot better about what I do. And I hope you enjoyed that. And yeah, I think I'll do the Amstrad ones. I haven't got so many of those. That'll be a reasonably short video. But I will do those, because I've got a few more added to it. And yeah, been good fun doing this. Really enjoyed it. Now all I need to do is go and play some of those, which I may go and do now, or am I going to have a cup of tea? I don't know. In the meantime, thanks very much for watching. I'll catch you again very soon. But until then, take care. Bye for now.